This is the Toyota Land Cruiser, a legendary off-roader, now in a brand new avatar for this latest generation. But does it live up to the hype? You know, they say, don't meet your heroes, but hey, this is Autogefühl, I'm AJ, and I've brought the brand new Land Cruiser all the way here to Morocco. First things first though, where does this sit in the lineup? Well, this is technically the 250 or the Prado. In some markets, you'll also get the 300 and the 70, which is the more utilitarian version. And of course, you also get the more luxurious brother, the Lexus GX. So, talking about design, I love what they've done. I like this design. It's retro, but cool. And in fact, if you had the first edition model, you even get round retro headlamps instead of these rectangular ones. I also really like this grille. It's very functional, looks really cool and retro, but they've moved all the vitals, the sensors and things like that, towards the middle and higher up so that it's less prone to damage. Speaking of damage, this is also very form follows function, and the beauty comes from that functionality. Like the shape of these bumpers are also there to prevent it from getting scratched. And if you do get it scratched, well, this black piece is all you need to replace. You don't have to replace much more. Each thing is a separate panel, so you don't have to replace the whole bumper. Even the lights are kind of nestled away and hidden so that they don't get damaged as easily. The bonnet as well, this is squared off so you can easily place it. You know, you understand where the corners of the car are, but the center is dipped. So when you're driving, you're in the driver's seat, you have a nice clear view out forward. So now let's talk numbers. So 31 degrees approach angle, 22 degrees departure angle, 22 centimeters of ground clearance, water wading depth about 70. And then this is now 4.9 meters long. It's pretty long, not too far from the 300 in fact. But depending on the engine and the variant you get, it also weighs up to 2,500 kilos, so pretty hefty. A lot of new things with this new platform, of course. It's much more stiffer, it's lighter. You also get nice 20-inch wheels like the one you see here. They start at 18 inches for the lower variants. This is an independent double wishbone front suspension, but for the first time ever here on Toyota, it also gets a decoupling stabilizer bar, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and test it out. So it's not a rigid axle, but it's kind of the best between the both worlds in terms of independent suspension and of rigid axle. This is also the first Land Cruiser to get electric power steering, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, functional beauty. I really like the belt line. It's lower than you see here, so you get really good visibility down. Of course, this car has a lot of different cameras, and we'll show you how that works, including an off-road view, you know, the invisible bonnet view, which we see in other manufacturers. That's also available here. I like the turning indicators nestled in the side of the door mirrors. Tall, upright design. I like how everything is tucked away down here. Again, because if you're going on some rocky sections, you don't want rocks to, you know, smash your door when the car starts wiggling and leaning on either side. So again, very form follows function, but they've made that look beautiful. I do like the kink up here towards the rear quarter panel, but upright design, and again, pretty long back here. But to me, this looks really cool. Not often do I feel this small in front of a car. Look at that, oh my goodness. It is a little bit higher than I am, okay? So let's give me some credit there, but upright, boxy design, again, very retro, I love it. You can open just the window, for example, and of course the hatch, I'll show you that in a minute. Overall design is really nice. Land Cruiser badging only for the European market, like I said. Prado, if you're in Australia. Like the tail lamps as well, although the indicator lights are quite small. The ones in the front are pretty good though. Further down, pretty rugged and functional bumper. The spare tire is here, so it's not on the tailgate. And again, a proper utilitarian tailpipe. Now, Toyota has been very proud of the fact that they're trying to bring the Land Cruiser back towards its original. So unlike the Defender, which went very much towards the luxury, soft, complicated kind of a direction, they want to bring the 250 series back towards being more functional, but also more appealing, and they say affordable. Is that the case? We'll find out towards the end of the video. Here we have the key fob. I do like the Land Cruiser embossing, but keyless entry, so put it away. the car unlocks. Let's give a quick sound check. Pretty solid, no shimmies here. I would say pretty solid as well. So really big, heavy doors and a bit monochromatic, but really good materials. So even up here, it's pretty soft. This is of course padded. This is also padded. Knee padding, of course, because you're gonna go off-road. Buttons with memory, so again, really useful. Reasonable space, I would say this is not too wide, but this over here is big enough to at least fit a small water bottle. You get different seating options as well, starting with fabric seats. There's even a recycled PET material used in certain markets. There's also leatherette and animal skin, but I think, you know, the leatherette or the fabric seats are more durable and more off-road. You can also get the automatic adjusting here as well, depending on the trim. So, taking a look inside, very different interior, really funky, so really excited. Let me get inside. There's a handle here and a floorboard. It's gonna get dirty, right? I mean, why am I bothering tapping my shoes? There's also off-road floor mats, but oh boy, it really does feel like you're in a very commanding position. But new instrumentation, new technology, a lot to talk about. Get inside, let's take a closer look. I really like the design of the interior of the Land Cruiser. Look at these air vents. Looks really cool. Looks like the nozzle of a jet fighter engine, doesn't it? With these turbines. Soft touch materials here. Even the top of the dash is nice and soft. Of course, off-roader, so a very sharp rake for the A-pillar. Grab handles for the co-passenger as well. Nice little inlay. Soft materials here. Damped glove box. Not too bad. I would say it's fairly reasonably sized. It's lightweight. A little bit harder plastics around here, but padding for the knee as well. And of course, a big new thing is the fact that you get two 12.3-inch screens, a central infotainment and a 12.3 digital instrument cluster. These are the optional top of the range. You get smaller ones, for example, 9 inches. But again, very slick, very useful. We'll take a quick look at this in a minute. But I also like the fact that there's a padded area here for you to rest your hand, even when you're off-road, to help stabilize, you know, what you're pressing. Big chunky air vents, big buttons, again, very chunky to turn on the defoggers, to change the temperature, to turn the AC off. Again, you could even operate these when you're wearing gloves. So very functional. Buttons down here are, yeah, not too bad. They're a little bit tucked away, but I can still reach this button. The audio knob, charging ports, wireless charger, for example, an HDMI. Honestly, I can't think of what you would use for this. If you know, if you're a hardcore off-roader and you know why there's an HDMI cable, let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested to learn more about that. A nice chunky gear lever over here, adjustable or adaptable beverage holders. And this area, of course, is also very interesting because there's a lot of interesting mode selectors. For example, here, the drive mode selector. You have the multi-terrain select button here. We'll get into the details. You have the crawl control, electronic parking brake and auto hold, sure. But down here you have your low range transfer case, high 4 and then low 4. Center locker for the center transfer case. Rear differential lock. Remember, this doesn't have a front locker. It's just a brake-based, traction control. But this is pretty cool. So this is the front stabilizer decoupler. So the anti-roll bar or the stabilizer bar can be decoupled, and this, even though it's independent front suspension, the two wheels will be really independent in that case. So off-road, pretty cool. A nice deep center storage area. There's no chargers here, but this is cooled. You can hear the cooler turn on. Ooh. So you can have some nice beverages, and when you close it, it doesn't move, but it's a pretty comfortable area. Again, my knees are padded, my elbows are padded, and even the seats are so nice and plush. They're wide, they have good side bolstering. So again, when you're getting tossed side to side off-road, you're not going to be bruising yourself. This new infotainment screen is really nice and crisp, really vivid, and really high response rate. So you can see scrolling is really fast. You get, of course, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto connectivity. But yes, it's not the most fancy, but it does the job. As is common nowadays with off-roaders, you have a lot of camera feeds. These are useful, left and right side views, so you don't damage your wheels with rocks on the side. But also, there's like a transparent bonnet view. So as I start driving forward, it starts rendering, as you see, the image that I just passed over below me. It doesn't have the best resolution, as you can see, but when push comes to shove, it is pretty useful. The rear view camera is also, I would say 70%. I would have expected a little bit more clarity, especially at this price point. I really like the steering wheel design, and again, Toyota lettering instead of the logo here. Pretty cool touch. Buttons, no capacitive BS here, so you can operate this when you're wearing gloves. This is to control the menu and the volume, for example. And this is where you have the controls for the safety suite, for the lane keeping, the adaptive cruise control. There's some pretty intelligent highway adaptive cruise control and autonomous driving systems here. The display itself is, I would say, pretty minimalistic. You do have options to change the view, but don't expect it to be as complex as some of its German counterparts. But they do have some nice animations, like when I changed it to sport mode, which I think I don't want to go into sports mode. I would rather go into dirt mode, or deep snow, or mud mode. So there's some fun little animations here. And finally, there is also a head-up display. Okay, so this is the rear view mirror, but let's say you've piled up your camping equipment in the back and you can't see out the back. Well, flip the switch and now you just have a feed from a camera in the back, so you don't have to worry about the mirror. Although, I would say, if I have to complain a little bit, the resolution is not the best. The back seat of the Toyota Land Cruiser, well, it is a bit of a step up, but thankfully you do have the floorboard and a nice grab handle. The materials are also really nice, so they're not skimping out here in the back. Padding also for your shoulder, your elbow. A little bit harder plastics down here. And the bench is also really nice and flat and wide. So getting 3 people next to each other is actually not too bad, because it is a large vehicle. So you do have space. There is a little bit of a hump down here in the middle, but again, it's a ladder frame, body on top, so it's not as intrusive as other monocoque designs. Plenty of charging options with USB-C, 12 volts. Even the rear passengers have their own heating and cooling, left and right, just like the front 2 seats, and of course a separate climate unit. ISOFIX points for the outside 2 seats only, so only 2 back here. But I really like how they have a Velcro flap to hide that away, so nice, good quality. You know those little pop-out covers that you see in other cars? You're going to lose those. I think this is much neater. Center armrest, cup holders with adaptive clamps, so that's pretty good. 60/40, as you can see, and as you probably guessed, I can also recline the seat and put it upright, even though I wouldn't want to sit like this, but flexibility, that's pretty good. You are sitting a little bit low to the floor, if I'm honest. A little bit of a knees up, as you can see. This is set to my driving position. I'm 5'8", or about 173 centimeters. So yes, plenty of knee room. I do have space to slide my feet under the front seat, and now it's a little bit more comfortable. But if you're taller, if you're 6 foot, if you're like Thomas, it will feel probably a little bit more knees up. But nevertheless, very practical. And let's not forget, you can also get this as a 7-seater, and the 7 seats, the 2 seats in the back is actually pretty useful. If you want to see how that looks like, why don't you check out Thomas's review of the launch event of the Land Cruiser. We had a 7-seater there, and even Thomas could fit back there. All right, let's look at the trunk, the cargo capacity. So you can open just the window, like I said, and you can access items here. For example, if you're camping and you don't want to open the entire hatch. This is the camera for the display in the rear view mirror. You got to also kind of slam this down, and the camera for the 360 is actually over there, right next to the power tailgate button. So you get a 7-seater and a 5-seater option. In the 7-seater, with the full 3 rows up, you get a very measly 130 liters of boot capacity, even including the volume below. With the 5-seater, as you see here, this is a lot more. It's 742 liters. But what does that really mean in usable dimensions? It's about 116 centimeters or about 45 inches. Of course, very flat and very even loading area. You can also remove this cover. You have places to put away certain things. I also like that there's this strap here, you know? And on the side, you can see that there's a 12-volt power socket. And funnily enough, you know, even though this isn't the 7-seat version, you still get cup holders and a charger for the non-existent third row. So I guess if you have your dog back here, well, you can put your dog's water dish and they can watch something. I don't know. Seats also fold 60/40, so you can fold and tumble it up, and now you have so much more loading area. So what's going on underneath is quite interesting, actually. So this here in the European market is what we get. A 2.8-liter turbo 4 diesel engine making 205 PS, roundabout, again, depending on certain market changes, made it to a new and improved 8-speed automatic. This 2.8-liter has also been a little bit more refined. In the US, of course, you get the 2.4 petrol hybrid with 330 horsepower. So pretty interesting for the Land Cruiser. And a permanent all-wheel drive setup with a transfer case and a Torsen limited slip differential and a mechanical locking differential for the rear axle, rigid axle, and a center lock as well. However, independent front suspension, no front locker. Instead, you get brake-based traction control. In Europe, in the future, we will also get a mild hybrid diesel as well. All right, so we're here in Morocco in the Middle Atlas Mountains with the Toyota Land Cruiser. I'm really excited, but first, before they let me loose out on these gorgeous trails here in the mountains, there are a couple obstacles for me to get to know the car a little bit more, especially in terms of this new technology here that we have. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to neutral, right? And then we're going to go to 4 low. There's a symbol here on my instruments to tell me that 4 low is now engaged. This is a full-time all-wheel drive, so there is no 2 high, right? It's 4 high and 4 low because the front axle is always connected. That means there's a central differential, and we want to lock that center differential as well so that the power distribution across the 2 wheels, to the 2 axles, are always uniform. And remember, this is an independent front suspension, but there is a way to deconnect the stabilization bar, the anti-roll bar. So the anti-roll bar on the front axle in a regular car, you know, if the front right wheel gets knocked up when you're going off-road or you hit a pothole, it also pushes the left wheel up, so to counteract the sway of the car. And it's great on-road, but off-road, that means that it will push the wheel up off the ground and then we'll have less contact. So we want them both to be independent and operate freely. Basically, there's some kind of a coupling on the front sway bar or the anti-roll bar, which will then decouple itself so the 2 independent suspension on the wishbones on the front wheels can operate on their own. Still not as off-road capable as a rigid axle like we have on the rear, which will in fact push the other wheel down, but this is the next best thing. So 4 low, center lock, and the destabilization. So go to drive, turn on crawl control, and then I can choose the speed here with the mode selector, and I'm going to set it to, let's see, maybe 2 kilometers per hour, and then we're going to get going. Okay, so now we're going down a 30-degree incline. I'm going to put it to maybe, it's not necessarily 1 or 2, 3 kilometers per hour, but it's kind of level 1, 2, 3. And it feels like I'm having a plane crash in a car straight down. Well, not really, it's 30 degrees. So I can see the pitch and the roll here on the meters here, and the pitch, roll, and tilt. So pretty cool. It's very controlled. In fact, it's not really needing me to do anything. My feet are completely off the pedals. This electric steering means that it's really easy to make small corrections. Now in 4-low and with all of this off-road stuff activated, I'm already seeing the front camera view. I can also turn on the invisible bonnet view to really get an idea of what's happening right below us. It's pretty cool. And I'm looking straight ahead and all I see is the ground. Where's the sky? Oh, it's over there. So now the brakes are being applied individually to all 4 wheels, depending on which one has the most traction. Of course, being in low range means that we're using a lot of the engine braking. So this nice diesel engine has a lot of torque, so it's a good engine braking. The lock differential means that you know, the forces are not being distributed to the wheel which would slip the most. It's still distributed evenly. And this is pretty easy. So why don't we go also and check out the axle twister so we can learn a little bit more about how this front stabilization disconnection system works. And then I think I'm confident enough to venture out into the Atlas Mountains by myself. You guys are going to join me for that, right? All right, now we are on the axle twister. So everything is the same. I have the differentials locked. I'm in 4-low. I have the sway bar disconnected. And now it's a good opportunity to show how the different axles, the independent and the rigid axle, makes quite a bit of difference, because you can see how the engine is, I can see on the display here which wheels have traction. That's pretty cool, actually. The front right and the rear left. So they're alternating. So they're all alternating right now, and the traction control, the braking, everything is working together to push power to the wheels that have traction, and it's taking me across without a problem. But now I think I have the basics down with this car. I've gotten to know it, and I'm excited to just get out and explore. Toyota has left me to my devices and has given me full reign over this car. So here we are in the Middle Atlas Mountains of Northern Africa, and with AJ behind the wheel, let's go exploring. And what better vehicle than the 250 Land Cruiser? First thing that really strikes me is just how composed and easy this SUV makes it. I see rocks and ruts and, you know, ditches on the road ahead, but I don't feel them. I feel like, wait, did we even go over that? That's how good the suspension here is. The steering is also so direct. It's a slow steering rack, of course, because, well, it's an off-road vehicle. You know, and, you know, I'm making this sharp turn here. It's quite maneuverable. On these narrow tracks, not a problem. I'm still in 4 high. I haven't put any lockers on. So far, this is a piece of cake. Sure, you could probably do this with a monocoque, front-wheel biased, coupling-based all-wheel drive car, but this is designed for that. And that ladder frame, there's a big difference when you drive a ladder frame SUV off-road, just because of the way it gobbles up with brute force all of these rocks and undulations. It just is such a robust platform. That makes also a big difference, and also gives you a lot of confidence. Wow, look at this view. You know what, we have a lot of these gizmos. Why don't we put it to use? So I'm gonna go to neutral. Let's go into 4-low. All right, so we're in 4-low. Let's disconnect the front stabilizer bar. Why not? All right. I don't know if we need the central lock or the rear lock yet. And let's carry on. 8-speed automatic, of course, so even if it's the low range in the transfer case, it'll probably select a higher gear. Again, this bonnet design really does make a difference. The bulging outside sections really help me place the corners of the car, but the dip in the middle gives me the ability, like right now, I don't want to scrape anything. I just have to lift my head up a bit, and it's super easy. And imagine this with 7 people, your friends, your family, with music playing, with air conditioning, with these really comfortable seats. I gotta say, these seats are also really comfortable. Holds you in place pretty well. The side bolstering is not too intrusive. It's not too bulky. These are also standard tires. We haven't switched out the tires. So this is where the Land Cruiser was designed to be. The engine here sounds purposeful. It's definitely louder. It's definitely grumblier than you might be used to if you haven't driven vehicles of this nature. But when you're driving like this, it's expected. You're in a low range, you're revving the engine quite high. It does have a bit of that grumbly tone, but I like it. It's got personality, it's got grunt. Things are heating up. Let's do some rock crawling. Look at that view, gorgeous. Let's use the invisible bonnet view. To be honest, a little bit disappointed with this. So if I need to find some criticisms, I would say just the stitching of these images. It just clips. I don't really find it very useful. I like the mirrors, the view from the mirrors, so the cameras that point straight down to help me keep on track. But at the end of the day, I still do it old-fashioned, looking outside, looking at the mirrors. And again, this low belt line is fantastic. I can really position it well. But in low range, with the center diff lock engaged, there's so much control. The car is really composed. There's so much traction and torque. And again, that suspension is really smoothing out all of these bumpy sections. Of course, the minute I go over 30 kilometers an hour, the front stabilizer disconnect, the anti-roll bar disconnection system will re-engage. But at low speeds like this, it stays deactivated. And nice. Now we have a pretty steep uphill. Let's make sure I don't hit the rocks on the side. Again, I find myself just going to the views from the outside mirrors rather than this bonnet view. With this disconnected front sway bar, see, right now we need to have good articulation. Not bad. And that rigid rear axle, I can feel that pushing itself down on the other side. Oh yeah. Even an amateur like me, this is a walk in the park. So now on the left side, I have a big bump, so the car is going to tilt significantly to the right. Here we go. Not bad. No, nothing lost traction. Good axle articulation. Oh yeah. This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. The thing is, with cars like this, you have the spirit of adventure and you get to go out and explore things like this, but it really depends on where you live. If you live in Morocco, then sure, this is probably commonplace or easily accessible when you want to have an adventurous weekend out. But if you live in Central Europe, it's hard to get to places like this, and then you end up living with this car in your cities, on the highways. And in terms of comfort and in terms of the features, the ADAS, it also has you covered there. But let's towards the end of the video, we'll also take it out on some open roads and check it out there. We're at the top of these mountains now, and the track is leveled out. It's more like a rally stage, so I have an idea. Why don't we try out some of the driving modes or the MTS system? So I'm going to go back to 4 high. And let's go to the MTS selector. And then there's auto, dirt, sand, mud, deep snow. Let's leave it in auto. Let's see what it does. Let's go to drive. So it's regular 4 high now, and MTS is auto. The center diff is still locked. Let's see how it goes. Woohoo! Again, great suspension. Steering feels really nice and direct. The brake pedal feel also adapts quite a bit. So in different modes, you have better articulation, or you have a little bit more, it's more gradual or it's more sharp. Oh yeah, full-time all-wheel drive. It floats over these bumps. That ladder frame chassis yeah, see, the brake now is a bit more gradual, so it's not locking up, it's not kicking in the ABS. You can carry some pretty decent speed on these kinds of trails. I'm going 50, 60 right now, which is, I would say, plenty fast enough. Let's go into dirt mode and see if I can feel any difference. It's hard to say. I think I don't really feel too much of a difference here in the dirt mode. Well, I guess the auto mode is continuously adjusting the parameters for the throttle response, the steering weight, the transmission calibration, so when it shifts up and down, rather than a fixed program, it's just adapting to what the sensors are telling it. So I think leaving it in auto is probably the best bet. Do you like off-roading? Put it down in the comments below, because to me, something like this is very, it's something that is like a dream, right? I don't know if I would ever really feel like I want to go on tracks like this all the time. It's fun when we get to do it from time to time. I know there are hardcore off-roaders, you know, and this is the challenge with cars like these for manufacturers is, do you keep it hardcore and sell only a few to the true, you know, aficionados, or do you make it more generic and then more broadly appealing? That's always a very important debate, and different companies and manufacturers try different techniques to strike a good balance, you know, with air suspension, monocoque chassis like the Defender, or really being luxurious like the G-Wagon, or being really true to its ethos like the Wrangler. And I think the Land Cruiser is more in terms of this spectrum towards the Wrangler, but, you know, independent front suspension, but with this disconnect, for example. Okay, so it's trying to meet you in the middle there. And this design also makes it so much more attractive. And I think design is a very key decision variable for people making purchases. So in that way, yes. But what is it like to live with when you end up driving on the road most of the time? Well, we have some country roads here, and let's try to understand that a little bit better. One of the things that Toyota has been very proud about is the fact that, of course, along with this rigidity in the chassis and the frame that they've been able to achieve, there's also a lot more NVH deadening. So a lot of sound insulation, a lot of dampening, and things like this to make it much more quiet. But has it really worked? To be honest, at low speeds, now at around 70 to 80 kilometers per hour, the only thing I really hear is the diesel engine. It's a bit grumbly, but I like that. It's got that nice character of being purposeful. It's strong, it's muscular, it's not trying to be pretty, it's just being rugged. And I like that. It has a good characteristic. I feel the vibrations of that actually through the steering wheel quite prominently, and even the accelerator pedal. So it's kind of interesting that way. And at these speeds, wind noise is not really a problem. But as we go faster, it's not that quiet. It actually has quite a bit of wind noise. Tire noise is definitely not an issue, but I would say wind noise is an issue. This is a body-on-frame SUV. It's heavy. It's 2.5 tons. It's got a lot of weight, but it tracks pretty good in a straight line. The electric steering also means that it's much more confidence-inspiring. Brake feel is actually pretty good. And yes, see, around these corners at 100 kilometers an hour, I don't feel like the car is getting out of place. Permanent all-wheel drive also means that there's more comfort in knowing that there's better traction on all four wheels. The 8-speed automatic is also really nice and smooth. The ratios have been kind of further tuned for better mileage and better low-down tractability. But yes, at 100, 120, wind noise is not too apparent. It's in German Autobahn speeds. If you're going to be driving 150 or 140, that's where the wind noise is going to be a little bit more prominent. I'm too scared to look at the mileage because we haven't really been driving this in a way that we can get good mileage. We've been in low range, we're going off-road all the time. But towards the end of the video, let me see if I can find a good number to communicate. But visibility is great, tall windows, nice upright seating position, so it's really commanding. It's also got lane keeping assist, so it'll automatically keep me in lane. It also looks at cars merging onto your lane, so it will preemptively slow you down rather than waiting for that car to come across, which is a really nice extra detail that I appreciate in these more sophisticated systems. It also looks at the car, the second car in front, so that it's a lot more aware. And you see now around this corner, it's already starting to make the turn. Definitely for long family drives. The security system, the suspension is great. It's really soft. It's really soft. The body roll is well contained for an off-road SUV like this. The only thing I guess would be the sound insulation. I had a great day exploring the Atlas Mountains with the new Land Cruiser 250, and it did everything in the standard Dunlop all-terrain tires. And yes, we tried to get a more realistic mileage reading, so we reset the trip meter and drove only on the country road for about an hour, and it was giving around 7 to 8 liters per 100 kilometers, so that's actually really good. A combined cycle of off-roading with low range and on-road was still around 13 to 15 liters for 100 kilometers. But again, I think it's very respectable. So let's talk about the main thing, the elephant in the room, the price. So in the US, it actually starts around $57,000, which I think is actually reasonable. But here in Germany, the entry variant is 68,000 euros, and this top of the spec model is almost 100,000 euros. That's a lot of money. They wanted to bring the Land Cruiser 250 back to the original, and for sure the design I think is amazing. I think this is what it should have been instead of the previous generation's design, but it's still really expensive. For that though, you are getting fantastic hardware. The all-wheel drive system, the engine, the gearbox, fantastic. The software could be a little bit more intuitive. Some of the menus are a bit cumbersome, and for 100,000 I expect better camera resolution. But overall, this lives up to the hype, and if I could afford one, I would pick one up tomorrow. What do you think? Put it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and check out some of these other reviews as well.